Rife with drama. They held their first training camp practice yesterday. There's Dak. We can show you him. We can't show you CD Lamb because he wasn't there. He's holding out. Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons are both in camp, despite also wanting new deals. But you need to hear the conversating that took place. Here are Dak and Jerry Jones to begin.
I do not think that this will be his last year with the Cowboys at all. Am I being psychotic relative to my mirror? No. It's pretty clear, I think. I want to say it if it hadn't been clear, of how much we appreciate what Dak Prescott has meant to this team in a positive way. But believe it or not, in my life, I've had a lot of things I wanted that I couldn't get because I couldn't afford it. Now, have I learned to live with that in 80-something years? You bet I have, and life does go on. And sometimes when you get a bump like that, you turn around and do better than you would have had you got what you wanted.
At the end of the day, it's a business, and when I'm gonna say it, I want to be here, but when you look up, all the great quarterbacks I watched played for other teams. So my point in saying that is that's not something to fear. That may be a reality for me one day, may not be my decision. So that's the freedom that I have.
Okay, so here we go. Jerry opens the door. Sometimes you get bumped in a better direction. Dak opens the door. Brady, Manning, Rodgers, all going other places. Bart Scott, what did I just hear?
The opening lines of a separation, right? And it's kind of planting the seeds for the ability to be able to step away and say, I told you so. And also, a little, leverage. They're trying to spar a little bit to make sure that they put out their public perception. I want to be here, but, and everybody has a but. I wanted a lot of things, but, I want to stay here, but I've seen quarterbacks that I've loved and followed go somewhere else. And this is where I always thought this was headed. And listen, I side with Jerry Jones on this. When you go this far and the guy's already making $55 million, you have to really internalize, do I really want to give this guy a 5-year deal for $300 million? And what does that mean for the rest of my roster? So I think, when you talk about it, I think this is put up and shut up for Mike McCarthy. This is put up or shut up for Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has been with the Dallas Cowboys for 9 years, and he's played well. He's played at an MVP level at times, but he's fallen short when they needed him the most. And I think, right now, they must understand that if we can't win with this iteration, this team, then paying Dak $60 million, paying CD Lamb that money, paying Michael Parsons that money is going to take away from, maybe Zach Martin. It's going to take away maybe from DeMarcus Lawrence. And if we can't win with DeMarcus Lawrence and Zach Martin, how the hell are we going to win without them?
So basically what we heard there were the opening salvos, right, Graziano? I mean, you're accustomed to these press conferences. Yeah. Those were, first of all, the sight of Mike McCarthy sitting there next to Jerry Jones, listening to him talk was priceless. The look on his face, like, I can't believe what's actually happening here. But Dan, I mean, when he says every now and again you get bumped in a different direction and it winds up working out better for you, that doesn't take a dictionary to understand.
No, it does not. And you hear Dak Prescott saying the same kind of stuff, right? Because if Dak Prescott is not at peace with the possibility of playing somewhere else, then he doesn't have leverage, right? So Jerry's trying to say, we might be able to get by without you. And Dak's trying to say, I'd probably be all right if I ended up somewhere else. That's the negotiation that's happening publicly on, by the way, just so you know, they're on a tennis court in back of a residence inn that functions as their training camp site in Oxnard. It's amazing. And McCarthy sits there the whole time, and Jerry and Steven talk, and maybe Mike gets one question, and it's I've been there. It's phenomenal. But anyway, yes, I think what Jerry's trying to say is, and I want the list. I want the list of stuff that Jerry wanted and couldn't afford in his life. I don't think it's going to take him long to give us that. But what he's trying to say is, look, if it doesn't work out. We found Dak Prescott in the 4th round when Tony Romo had a back injury. We didn't think he'd be a starter right away. Sometimes things happen, and it turns out okay. And I think that's the message Jerry's trying to send if Dak Prescott really wants to take this all the way to the end.
Every part of this is so fascinating. Tim Hasselbeck, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, I think there's no question Jerry Jones is negotiating through the media, saying like, hey, you know, it's like we can turn the page at quarterback. He's saying that. And I think that Dak Prescott is sitting there at the poker table and he's like, yeah, you know what? I could go somewhere else. I will say this, like listening to those, you know, two pieces of sound back to back, I actually think we got to give Dak Prescott a whole lot of credit. Like Dan's right. They acquired him in the 4th round. And Dallas tried to negotiate with him by basically, you know, trying to hold that over his head because he was cash poor relative to other guys that are playing quarterback in the National Football League. And Dak stood toe-to-toe with them, you know, a billionaire owner, and negotiated with them. And was like, look, I'm going to bet on myself. And I think Dak Prescott is doing it again. Like, I think we got to give, look, Dak Prescott, the quarterback. How about Dak Prescott, the contract negotiator, to stand up there, kind of have a little chuckle, a little smile, and say, yeah, Favre, Rodgers, Brady, Manning, no doubt. Yep, just like those guys. Might end up somewhere else. Be careful what you wish for.
Go ahead, Danny.
Because that little smile is Dak saying, I know how this is going to get played. I know where this is going to go everywhere, but I'm going to say it anyway because I got nothing to lose. I am fine.
That's exactly right. And if you really think about it, look, if you're a great NFL quarterback, I mean, or even very good to great NFL quarterback, there can be other priorities in your life beyond just maximizing every penny you make, right? You want to have good teammates, you want to win games, all that. It's not just about making every cent you can. But if your goal is just to make every cent you can, then Dak is actually writing the manual of how to go about doing it.
Negotiate that brilliantly in his last contract so that he can have this opportunity. And, you know, maybe this is something that we're going to foreshadowing when you think about, you know, he's continuing the book of Kirk Cousins, but maybe this is going to be the next chapter of this book is going to be Dak, and then after that it's going to be Brock Purdy. Because when these guys come in and they're not first-round draft picks, you don't have that fifth-year control. So guys get to free agency a lot earlier than expected. And it happened with Tony Romo as well because he was an undrafted free agent as well who was able to get an opportunity to play. And, you know, what happens is the team has to leverage, and they benefit from having a cheap roster for years and getting all this, you know, great teams around them. But then what happens is then the quarterback gets the credit, but eventually that credit card bill is due. And right now that credit card bill is due, and it started with how Dak came in the league, and they try and hold that against you, the old scarlet letter, hey, you weren't some franchise first-round draft pick. We took a chance on you. You developed underneath us. You owe us something. And Dak saying, no, I don't. You know, I've held up my end of the bargain. Now I want to be compensated accordingly.
Right. The classic line from North Dallas 40, every time you say it's a game, I say it's a business. Every time I say it's a business, you say it's a game. All that is good. Now, I want you to hear one more thing, because at the end of the day, this is still about the beginning of a football season. None of the things that we're talking about are going to manifest themselves until after the 2024 football season. As of this moment, CeeDee Lamb is not a part of the Dallas Cowboys. He is in theory, but not in spirit. Jerry Jones also addressed that part of negotiations. You have to hear what he said about this.
I don't flare when it's happening to us. I'm aware of it. You must give me that I'm aware that we want to get these guys to camp. Business as usual, as far as I'm concerned. I'm used to this. I can live with this.
So he can. What does that mean? I don't flare when it's happening to us. He's talking about specifically players holding out. What did that mean, Dan?
So he's still negotiating, right? Like CeeDee Lamb, okay, you want to be the highest paid receiver, but we probably can't put that deal together and also get Dak Prescott signed and then down the road Micah Parsons. So the thing that they have some leverage over CeeDee Lamb, right? They can't franchise Dak Prescott next year according to his contract. That means they have the franchise tag available for someone, and that someone could well be CeeDee Lamb. So their position on CD is while they're negotiating, if it gets to a point where they're not comfortable going, then like okay, well, come in and play out the year. And then we have the ability to franchise you next spring if we need to do that to keep you. So that's what this negotiation is. He's saying we've been through this before. He's right. We've seen it with Ezekiel Elliott a few years ago. Saw it with Zach Martin just last year. Oftentimes, those players end up getting what they want in the contract from Jerry Jones. And maybe that'll be the same with CeeDee Lamb. But as of now, the Cowboys' position is, hey, you can sit out as long as you want, but ultimately you really do have to come play.
And I don't think there's any expectation that the way this ends is CeeDee Lamb not playing at all this season. But just at the risk of, just to make it clear, and Tim Hasselbeck, at the risk of asking the stupid question, there are some things you want to have. There are some things you absolutely have to have, right? If the Cowboys are going to have a season, they absolutely have to have CeeDee Lamb, right?
Absolutely they do. Look, they've drafted the guy. They've developed him. They need him going forward, like beyond this season. Like receivers like CeeDee Lamb, you don't just get them every year in the draft. Like the bust rate on receivers in the National Football League is high. I think what's really interesting here is that this one's obvious. Dak's situation, because of how it's played out, has gotten a little tricky. You know, the Micah Parsons one, is probably a year away. But with CeeDee Lamb, you just look at the rest of the receiver market, it's obvious. And really, guys, I think the thing here that's kind of interesting is we look at the Dallas Cowboys and everyone thinks about Jerry Jones and he's obviously super wealthy and all that stuff. I think the Cowboys are being cheap. And I think they've handled negotiations in the past and they've been cheap with how they've done things. And if it were the Cincinnati Bengals or the Arizona Cardinals, people would be rolling their eyes and be like, there they go. It's another cheap organization. That's what they're doing. I think that's how Dallas is negotiating with some of their star players, trying to get them on the discount.